I want to continue our coverage of the visit of French President Emmanuel Macron to the White House to meet with Donald Trump on the subject of Ukraine. And it seems the intention of Macron here is to try to nudge Trump back towards sanity as he's gone off of the deep end into insanity, with pretty rapidly descending into a crazy pro-Russian position as these talks, the pursuit of peace after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, is underway. And so we'll get to the footage you were seeing on screen there of another part of this visit that we haven't yet talked about. But first, let me go back to something that we didn't have a chance to discuss during the conversation in the White House between Macron and Trump. And that's when Macron, right there to Trump's face, calls out and debunks Trump's lies. And this is really important because I think this, in a little 1 minute clip, reveals who really has the truth on their side. And it's not the Trump position that's become eerily similar to the Russian position.
I support the idea to have Ukraine first being compensated because they are the one to have lose a lot of their fellow citizens and being destroyed by these attacks. Second, all of those who paid for could be compensated, but not by Ukraine, by Russia, because they were the one to aggress.
Again, just so you understand, Europe is loaning the money to Ukraine. They get their money back.
No, in fact, to be frank, we paid 60% of the total effort.
Look at Trump's face. He's so embarrassed. It's like, oh, I don't even know. Hey, kids, class, what is 2 + 2? And a little kid raises his hand. 5. And the teacher goes, no, sorry, it's 4. And just because Trump's face is so orange, I think it would be hard to see him blushing. But I imagine under the layers and layers and layers of whatever is on his face, there's some blush. He's embarrassed.
In fact, to be frank, we paid 60% of the total effort, and it was through, like the US, loans, guarantee, grants, and we provided real money. To be clear, okay. We have 230 billion frozen assets in Europe, Russian assets, but this is not as a collateral of a loan because this is not our belonging. So they are frozen. If at the end of the day in the negotiation we will have with Russia, they're ready to give it to us, super. It will be loan at the end of the day and Russia will.
Trump does, excuse me, I was talking. I was lying, but I was talking. You can't just interrupt me just because I was pulling things out of my rear end. Emmanuel, you said we were going to do this, Emmanuel.
They're ready to give it to us. Super. It will be loan at the end of the day, and Russia will have paid for that.
If you believe that, it's okay with me. But they get their money back, we don't, and now we do. But you know that's only fair.
To do something.
I just explained that to you, Donald, and you're not listening. And by the way, Trump does make a lot of claims about how Europe's not supporting like we are. And if you'll put this up on screen, U.S. News and World Report also fact checks that. You can see Europe in with much more than the United States. And we both diversify from just raw dollars given here, money, and giving equipment. Some, as I mentioned in the other segment, that is old equipment. We're going to replace it anyway, so we give it to them and then we replace it. And that's the money that's allocated is to spend in the United States on our own equipment. And then some of it is in the form of stuff that Ukraine has to pay back ultimately, which is a part of why with the debts they'll have coming out of this, it's absurd that Trump is saying they should have 500 billion extra in owed, resources to us, even separate from that. And he has no, in this negotiation, demand of Russia to pay for, to make right for all the damage that they've caused. All right, so moving on from that, imagine being in the room with the sitting president of the United States and you get called on. So you now have a question with the president, as that president is fundamentally changing the world order, realigning U.S. interests far too close to Russia's than our longtime allies, and spitting all over the concept of sovereignty and principles that we've stood by for generations now, or tried to. And you now have a question, okay? What are you going to ask? You could ask the most hard-hitting question. Here you go. This is your moment. Brian Glynn, Marjorie Taylor Greene's boyfriend, had this to say. By the way, if you're not subscribed, please do.
The Harvard poll that came out had you up 9+ points, and all of your agenda that you ran on, you're accomplishing that. You got the support of the American people, including stopping the war in Ukraine. If you can comment on the latest Harvard poll, I appreciate that.
Well, I was honored by it. It was.
First of all, I've already gone over Trump's approval and how it's declining a lot, and how compared to other presidents at this point in time in the presidency before, a lot of time has passed by for their approval rating to drop. It's actually really bad. But what a weird, can you comment on the fact that people love you? Can you comment on the fact that people are crediting you with ending the war in Ukraine? What was that? No, it's still going on. And we're getting further from, as he continues these talks, a settlement that would not just be meaningless piece of paper, but long-standing peace, which is the whole problem. Any president could have gotten Putin to baselessly agree to stuff while demanding cemented concessions from Ukraine that would change for a century the world order. It'd be really easy to give everything to Putin and then he would say, okay, I will stop then. But that's not the same as long-standing peace created by that deal through security guarantees or some other structure you could create. I don't know how else you would do it. But they're already crediting him, Brian? Really? Maybe you and Marjorie are good for each other, because that was ridiculous. Can you comment? Let's listen to that question and then we'll hear Trump's response.
The Harvard poll that came out had you up 9+ points, and all of your agenda that you ran on, you're accomplishing that. You got the support of the American people, including stopping the war in Ukraine. If you can comment on the latest Harvard poll, I appreciate that.
Sir, I have pinned up above my bed a photo of you. And every night I go to bed looking at it saying, what would... No, wait, never mind. I have written on my wrist, WWDD. What would Donald do? And anytime I'm in a tough situation in life, I just look at that on my wrist and I say, what would King Donald do? Brian, this is sad, Brian. Can you imagine? I promise I'll play the rest of it. Sorry, I'm getting too caught up in it. Can you imagine Marjorie? They're actually dating. I'm not using that as a joke. I don't know if you knew that. They're actually in a relationship together. They recently went to Costa Rica, I think, and we're posting photos. Yes, we're loving it. Sunbathing, whatever. Can you imagine a dinner with them? In a sense, I'd like to be a fly on the wall, but in another sense, I think I would have permanent trauma just hearing them talk private. Do they just sit there and talk about how great Trump is, or how, Hillary Clinton extracts adrenochrome from little babies and then murders people that disagree? I don't know. Who knows what those dinners are like? All right, here's the rest of the answer.
Well, I was honored by it. It was a big poll, and it's usually a poll that leans on the other side of things, the other side of the world, so to speak. But the Harvard poll is a respected poll, and it has us not only leading, but leading by a lot, and leading on every single issue that we've talked about. And as I said, we've become the party of common sense. And I think that's a very important element now, common sense, because what's happening in the world and even in this country, some of the things that took place, many of them are now canceled and the rest are being canceled as we speak. But we've moved very rapidly and I think very effectively. So I was honored by that poll. Thank you very much.
That was apparently the first question of the press conference. Brian, you're putting yourself to shame. Meanwhile, when Macron gets asked an actual question, he gives an answer as to the history of his relationship with Putin and why he's learned the lessons with him that he has.
I stopped my discussion with President Putin after Bucha and the war crimes because I considered that, we had nothing to get from him in that time. Now this is a chance. There is a big change because there is a new U.S. administration. So this is a new context. So there is good reason for President Trump to re-engage with President Putin. But my experience is the following, and I shared it with President Trump and the team. In 2014, our predecessors negotiated peace with President Putin. But because of the lack of guarantees, and especially security guarantees, President Putin violated this peace. And I had several discussions, especially beginning of 2022, several times, 7 hours with President Putin, 15 days before launching of the attack. He denied everything, but we didn't have security guarantees. So this is why being strong and having deterrence capacities is the only way to be sure it will be respected.
Exactly. Clearly, Emmanuel watches the show every day. I guess from what he's saying, it's clear he got that from. No, it's the one important part. Is there any way to guarantee their safety? And there are that you could imagine, but ones like NATO or other European/United States dedications to participation in the defense that I don't think Trump has even one single eensy-weensy part of his brain that is intending on signing up for. So what you're going to get is, I don't want to keep saying this, I'm not trying to wish it into existence. What it seems like we're headed towards, though, is a deal that does require a lot of concessions from Ukraine, but essentially nothing other than for the war to stop temporarily from Putin, which Trump will say is peace, when in reality, it's actually giving Russia exactly what they want, which is to recover. They've been brutalized. Hello, have you seen how strong the defense of Ukraine has been? That's been militarily and economically exhausting for Russia. So a little chance to take a break is actually perfect for them. And then they'll continue. And just a piece of paper that says, I promise I won't. Sincerely, Vladimir, it doesn't do it. We've seen him violate such agreements before. I know I'm a broken record now, but that's the important points. And then you have Trump saying this.
That I'm coming in now, but I think it's to the very much benefit of Russia to make a deal and to go on with leading Russia in a very positive way. That's what you have to do. But I really believe that he wants to make a deal. Maybe wrong, but I believe.
Go on. Then once the war ends, Putin can go on, says Trump, leading Russia in a very positive way. If that's his interpretation of Putin's leadership, we are in a tough spot. Then on Doge, he said this.
That was also part of the Harvard poll. Do you agree with what President Trump is doing with Elon and others that are looking for the waste, fraud, and abuse? And the numbers were staggering. It was like 70% to 2%. Everybody wants to find out. They don't like it. And, you know, the radical left or whoever it may be starts screaming about the Constitution, but it has nothing to do with the Constitution. It has to do with fairness to this country. It has to do with being ripped off. And when you read the things...
When accused of not acting lawfully, it has nothing to do with the Constitution, said no one ever who wasn't violating the Constitution. The response is never, oh, no, this thing we're doing has nothing to do with the Constitution. Everything has to do. That's what? Yes, it does. If you could refute our allegations against you, you would just say, no, we have power to do X, Y, Z because the Constitution says X, Y, Z. And that's not what he says. He says, it's Constitution. No, that's not what I'm talking about. But yeah, there are ways, even if you think you're doing it for a justified reason, that you can violate the Constitution in such an effort, which is why Trump's out there saying someone who's saving their country doesn't violate any law. It's not law breaking if you're doing it for a really, really good cause. No, actually, I think that's kind of why the Constitution's in place, is because a lot of people will think that, and then they'll do bad stuff. They'll think, oh no, but this execution of these people, this genocide of these people is necessary because then we'll save the country. You ever heard of it? That's why you have guardrails. I'm not saying that's what Trump's doing for all the MAGAs who always jump to that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that is the furthest extreme example of why guardrails are so necessary. And so saying, no, but when I'm doing something really, really good, doesn't matter. No, not so much. Now, at this same event, as it was wrapping up, I told you in the other segment, they have a long history of handshake-offs. And that's what happened here as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. And apparently whenever Macron first arrived, you had Fox analyzing the handshake and thinking about how masculine it was.
European leader to come to the Trump White House, and we'll look for that handshake. There it is. Saw President Trump firmly grip the hand of Emmanuel Macron there, and a little bit of a pullback there from Macron. It's been a bit of a battle going back to 2017.
As we report on this breaking news, we have Donald Trump asserting his masculinity, saying, I own you. I am the big boy. I am the big dog. I am the alpha. We'll let you know more when we hear it. This is why I bring up the handshake, by the way, because this is what they use it in MAGA media for, is to say, look at how firmly Trump is gripping. He's gripping. I wish, nah, I'm not gonna say that. He's gripping Emmanuel Macron. And of course, this is what we already reviewed.
He's a smart customer, I will tell you that.
Yeah. Just we're all having a good old time. Here was the clip without Fox reporting on it. As Macron arrived, you had a lot of pulling and pulling and pushing and pulling. I bet you can imagine, podcast listeners, what this looks like. Just two people refusing to let go of each other's hands. By the end of this, both are going to have just white, completely bloodless hands and it's not going to be all sweaty. You're going to hold each other's hands so long as it be sweaty. No one wants a sweaty hand before a meeting. Ick. So that was the Macron-Trump meeting. I think we're done with that topic for now. Share your thoughts in the comments.